So hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. See, today we have an important sort of video that is lined up for all of you aspirants who are going to be taking the test tomorrow, right? UPSC Prelims exam. So in this video, I'll be discussing the most common mistakes that students generally tend to make and how to sort of avoid them. Okay, so without any further delay, let's dive right in and we'll try to keep the video very, very short. Okay, the very first one, okay? Number one is going to be reading the questions carefully. Now, see, this sounds very obvious, okay? But trust me, it is crucial. You've got to take your time to thoroughly understand each and every question, each and every statement and whatnot, okay? Before you can finalize your answer. And especially pay close attention to those sort of keywords that might even change the meaning. Okay, so those keywords are also kind of important. I'll give you a couple of examples. Any form of misinterpretation. Okay, so misinterpreting a question can definitely lead to selecting the wrong answer, right? Wrong input equals wrong output. So read very, very carefully. Okay, don't rush through. Now, it is very, very difficult to read 30 pages in 2 hours, 100 questions, 400 sort of options. It is going to be very, very taxing. 3-4 mistakes, we tend to make it. Okay, and especially towards the last half an hour. Okay, now this is exactly what you would want to avoid as well. I've given you an example here. There's a question from last year, right? See, be very cautious of those kind of questions that ask for the option that is not correct. Okay, sometimes the not may not even be that visible. Okay, it's not very clear. Okay, now this could lead to a potential sort of mistake. So pay very close attention, circle the not when you spot it, ensure that you don't make such errors. Okay, always be very clear about these things. Similarly, even when you have these kind of questions, right, consider the following statements and they'll give you a statement 1, Web 2.1 is so and so. Web 2.0 is so and so, Web 3.0 and so, and each and every one of those things can be 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines, right? Every part of those statements, you've got to read it well. Okay, and not only that, you also try to see which are the kind of combinations that can go well with each other or may not go well with each other. Okay, and then you try to sort of consider looking for the answer, right? All of these things probably will take time, but be very, very careful in this regard. Number 2, okay, managing time effectively or preventing the mismanagement of time tends to happen to us and a lot of things to get done, right? See, one thing that I would suggest is that skim through the entire paper in the beginning itself, okay? Start by answering those easier questions, build some amount of confidence, secure those marks in the very beginning itself, the easy marks in the beginning itself. And if you do stumble upon some difficult sort of question, don't get stuck on it, okay? It doesn't matter. Every one of those questions are going to be 2, regardless of whether it is easy, medium, or difficult. You can always come back to those kind of questions that are going to take you a little more time, the difficult sort of questions. Okay, and one more thing. See, for instance, there are 2 ways to attempt questions, right? One thing is that my suggestion is that start with the strongest subjects, like whatever is strong for you, right? For instance, for some of you, it might be polity, for some of you, it might be economy, instead of just following the sequential order of the questions. So for instance, let's say there's question 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as you open the question paper booklet, you're going to probably start here, sequential order. But my suggestion is, start with the ones that are strongest. The only thing is that you've got to basically go and find out where is your polity, where is your economy, whatever is your strength, correct? And that is that. And I'll give you an example. One of my students, okay, in the past, started again sequentially with a section that began with ancient and medieval and culture, right? And he was strong in that, right? He had prepared very, very well. But it just so happens that in that particular portion, sometimes, even with great preparation, okay, you may not be able to guess those answers. So you get to the answers, right? So he struggled with those initial sort of questions. He started losing confidence early on. So in order to avoid this, what are you going to do? You just try to attempt, the questions in your area, okay, build some confidence, and then you can come back to the more difficult or the other sort of areas a little later, right? So beginning, easy questions or your kind of favorite subject, okay? Confidence is the key. Also, not all the questions are going to take the same amount of time, okay? What do I mean by this? I have some questions here. These are not the questions that I want you to read or anything, but just take a cursory look at these. What do you see here? Okay, now this has certain number of words, whereas this is also another sort of a question, which basically is like 3 times the number of words, or possibly even 5 times the number of words. Okay, so in terms of the amount of time that it is going to take you, okay, these kind of questions, you know it or you don't know it. Okay, it's very, very simple. Some of these questions, if you know it, it's probably going to take you only 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and that includes even the bubbling time, right? Whereas there are going to be other kind of questions, okay? It need not be difficult. That's not what I mean, but it is going to take you a little more time. What do I mean by this? See, in these kind of questions, looking at the options, reading these options, deciphering these options, applying your logic, applying your logical analysis, okay, and understanding the statement combinations, all of these things are going to take you a little more time. So in some questions, it's probably going to take you maybe just over 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Some of them you might need a minute or more, okay, whereas some questions will really demand 2.5 minutes also, right? So you cannot be giving the same amount of minutes for this question that you would probably give for these kind of questions, right? So again, just to summarize, let's say it's 120 minutes, you have 100 questions. Okay, so think of it as, 1 minute per question, 100 questions, 100 minutes, 1 hour and 40 minutes, 15, 20 minutes as a buffer for your bubbling wala work. Okay, but that does not mean every single question will take the same amount of time. On average, it should be 1 minute, but it need not be the same amount of time for each question. So that is something that I would want you to sort of keep in mind. Okay, so time management is crucial. Okay, so take the time, divide it strategically in order to maximize your score. See, number 3, sticking to your initial answer choices. An important thing to keep in mind is sticking to your initial answer choices. Okay, for most of us, our first instinct is generally often correct. Okay, unless you have a compelling reason to change your answer, like you misread some portion or you did not factor in some other sort of aspect. Okay, our first instinct tends to be often correct. So go with your initial sort of assessment. Overthinking, right? And second guessing can lead to unnecessary mistakes later. Okay. So just have confidence in your first choice. Okay. Don't be tempted to make unnecessary changes by revisiting. Okay. I've noticed this with me. Okay. Whenever I go with the answer, it is true with many of my students also. 9 out of 10 times, I tend to be right in the very first time. But if I revisit, I tend to come up with some sort of a logic to sort of like, dispute that particular choice and then make some sort of a logic in support of another sort of an option. Okay, again, what is that? Overthinking. Okay, and eventually I end up marking the wrong sort of an answer. To all of those in this particular board, in this overthinking sort of board, just trust your first instinct, resist the urge to overanalyze, acknowledge that your initial response, your gut instinct, is often a result of your preparation, your knowledge, okay, and your experience, right? So it tends to be correct. Resist the urge to sort of come back and change these answers. In fact, one way to sort of do this thing is that as soon as you finalize an answer, just go ahead and bubble it, right? And once that is done, there's no point in revisiting because you cannot do anything after that. Okay, and that will be helpful. You will thank yourself later. Next one is keeping the bubbling towards the end. See, there are many different ways to bubble, right? So bubbling takes time. In general, it takes around 15 or 20 minutes if you carefully bubble, right? One way to bubble this thing is that, you attempt all the questions in your question paper. Once everything is done, go ahead and finish off bubbling. That is 100 questions to bubble. Okay, the chances of making mistakes a little higher as well. I tend to feel that the smaller the bubbling chunks, okay, the better it is for you and the less the number of mistakes. Now, what do I mean by the smaller the chunks? For a lot of people, you attempt a question, bubble it. Attempt another one, bubble it. Some might prefer to bubble it page by page. So 5 questions at a time, 4 questions at a time. Some might do it every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, and so on and so forth. So all of those things are slightly better than having 100 towards the end. First of all, you might be rushed, okay, and the chances of making those kind of mistakes is also relatively high. Do not make any bubbling sort of errors, okay? This tends to happen as well, but there's another sort of a mistake that you would definitely want to avoid. Okay, next one. Being ready for some unexpected questions. See, in UPSC Prelims exam, it is important to expect the unexpected. In previous year's exam, this is in 2022, right? Many students encountered this unique set of questions. I think there were a total of 6 such questions that one of them is given on the side. Okay, most of them are caught off guard. See, remember, unexpected questions are part of any competitive exam. Okay, UPSC Prelims is going to be no different, and it is going to be no different this year as well. Expect something. Okay, maintain a positive sort of mindset. Don't let any sort of unexpected question sort of like demotivate you or create some unnecessary stress. If you're already prepared, okay, expect some unexpected ones and just have the presence of mind to be able to find ways to sort of solve this, right? Okay, so even if it is 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs, 4 pairs, okay, have the presence of mind to think what could it be. If you are able to sort of like bring it down into a couple of options, right? Great. Okay, if you're not able to sort of get it, okay, it is okay. Okay, if it is going to be difficult for you, it is going to be difficult for everyone else as well. Correct? Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, tricks. Okay, see, the tricks need not be foolproof. Okay, see, so just it's essential to avoid falling into this trap of tricks and assumptions. Use it if you want, okay, but be aware that it is not going to be foolproof. I'll give you some examples, okay. For instance, most of you know this, right? So if UPSC gives you any facts, they tend to be generally wrong. If there are any dates mentioned, they're generally wrong. Science and tech, generally the answer is all of the above. Or there has to be a question on Jainism and Buddhism for sure. And that too, some people say that it is supposed to like alternate 1 year Jainism, 1 year Buddhism. Some people say that if Vijayanagar is the option, isn't the option, that tends to be the right answer. See, all of these things are based on a limited set of questions. Okay, every year UPSC basically gives you only like what? How many questions? 10, 15 questions in science and tech. This is not a very big sample size. And even the past stats, okay, need not be, okay, accurate predictions of the future. Right? Now, if these things would work, trust me, okay, that everybody knows this, right? Everybody should be clearing, or the cutoff should just go very, very high, because there'll be a lot of questions like this, 20, 30, 40 marks. Are they gifted? No, not necessarily. In fact, there are years in which if you go with all of the above for science and tech, you will end up in the negative. Okay, so these are not foolproof. Just keep that in mind. Okay, it does not guarantee the right answer. Okay, so I would suggest that first rely on your own knowledge, your own sort of logical analysis. Go with your gut instinct. In fact, I'll give you another example here. See, last year there was a question. This is at 2021, right? So there was a question in which, this is the question. You guys can pause and just read this particular question. Because a lot of people feel that Jainism and Buddhism is a pakka question. They went with Jain monks because it's the only place where they could find an option like this. See, it is true that certain topics like Jainism, Buddhism have been asked frequently in the past, but it doesn't guarantee their appearance, okay, every single year. UPSC aims to test you comprehensively, okay, in history and polity and in every different aspect. So they 10 and 100 is too less for them to be able to cover all of those. It need not be that every single year they will follow the same sort of pattern. Okay. And remember, if these kind of assumptions were foolproof and they could guarantee success, cracking the prelims is not going to be that difficult, right? Instead, it's crucial to approach the exam with your own sort of knowledge, your own sort of logical reasoning, and the merit of each question. I would say this. Okay. So just keep this in mind as well. In fact, if you find this particular question, the solved papers that are present on the internet, you just do a Google Images or any PDF that you find, almost every one of them, the students who have put up those PDFs, everybody's gone for it. Whereas in fact, this is also present generally, at least this one is present. Bhavbhuti is generally present, most standard sources that you would have. Okay, but most of the students have actually gone for this. Why so? Because, there are certain kind of assumptions people make and everybody just falls for them. Okay, so that is that. So just remember, rely on your gut instinct, your knowledge, your logical reasoning, instead of solely or only relying on such tricks. Okay, so as I promised, I'll keep it very short, right? So this will wrap up our video. Before we finish, again, I will leave you with some words of encouragement. See, tomorrow is the D-Day, right? It is a day to showcase all the hard work and dedication that you've put in for the last 3 months, 4 months, possibly a year, possibly years, right? Be positive about this. Embrace the challenge. Okay, you go there to give it your all in those 2 hours. Remember that if you avoid making the mistakes that we just talked about, you can actually reach your potential. Okay, and trust in your preparation and know that more often than not, okay, your potential is more than enough to crack this exam. Okay, avoid making those mistakes. Show your true potential. That should be sufficient. Okay, and for those of you who've actually put in all of this hard work, tomorrow is just a formality, right? You just have to show up, fight for those 2 hours with as much determination as possible. Enjoy the day, savor the day. And I promise you, if you worked for the last 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, okay, for sure, you are going to be invited to mains. Okay, it's just a formality tomorrow. Okay, so of course, luck will play a small role, okay, a micro role, I'd say. Okay, but rest assured that it will favor all of you who've actually prepared quite well. Okay, remember, Goddess Saraswati is also watching all over you. All of you. Okay, all of you. All the very best, guys. Okay, and I'm sure that you guys will do really well. Take care and bye-bye.